Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new here, I briefly tell you my name is Mel. I'm an Uruguayan neuroscientist, and on the side of my PhD I do these videos to bring closer the science to the public and especially generate content in Spanish for Latinx communities. But I'm also interviewing people from all over the world in English, because why stopping right there? And today's guest, she's from Indonesia, but is doing a PhD in Germany in a very interesting topic, which is the interactions between our gut and our brain, and specifically also in our gut, the bacteria that are there, and also the immune responses of our body, and how all of this ties together and connects with our diet, our mental health, a lot of cool stuff. And without further ado, let's get into it. Hi Irina, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi Mel. First and foremost, thank you for inviting me to share my stories on this platform. Very happy to be here, and I hope that you and your audience are doing well in this pandemic.
As a start, can you tell us a bit about your background? So you are from Indonesia. Where did you study? What did you study in order to get into this very interesting branch of science?
It's not a very easy question to answer, but I think human body is a very interesting system in the sense that when there's disturbance, even though it's just a small disturbance in a cell or in organs, and the others will always try to compensate for it and try to bring everything back to normal so that we can do our daily routine, for example. And I think it's overall a smart system. And another reason why I got interested in science is because science allows us to always question stuff. And I think the perks of being a scientist is to have the chance to answer our own question. And yeah, I think it's a quite rewarding career. And I think that was also what led me to my decision to pursue a bachelor's degree in human biology. And I did my bachelor degree at the University of Toronto in Toronto, Canada. I think in the later years of my bachelor, I also got interested into nutritional science. I think it was because I heard a lot of lectures about how our diet can influence our gut immunity and gut health in general through the gut microbiota, especially gut bacteria. And that's why I also chose nutritional science as my second major during my bachelor. And after my bachelor degree, I decided to pursue a master's in molecular medicine at the University of Göttingen in Germany. I was interested to know more about the molecular machinery that drives our cells and organs at large, and what happens to these machineries when there is a disease, for example, cancer, diabetes, or Alzheimer's in the brain, for example. And I think it's a very interesting topic to pursue.
Fantastic! First of all, telepathic high five, because I'm also a human biologist. And second, the gut microbiome, I find it a very fascinating topic and has such a big reach. It's amazing. Did you specialize on that, and in what particular aspect of it? Because you could do many things.
So I'm currently investigating about a receptor, and as a result also a signaling pathway that regulates the immune cells in the gut that are tolerant towards infection. But this receptor is not only found in the gut, but also in other organs like liver and spleens. And it can be activated by a lot of stuff, from toxins to substances found in our food, like broccoli, for example. And on the other hand, it can also be repressed by multiple stuff. There are some other factors that can repress this receptor. And in recent years, they've been finding that the substance that activates this receptor can also are also involved and regulates the brain cells and also the brain immune cells, or at least a specific population of brain immune cells. And not only the stuff that activates it, but also the stuff that represses it are recently also found in the region of the brain that regulate feeding behavior and also energy balance. So maybe my guess is we can also use it to study the underlying cause of disease like muscle wasting syndrome, for example, that are commonly found in cancer patients, as it also involves in it also involves energy balance dysregulation. So, and I think the far-reaching implication would be to provide doctors or clinicians with a more systemic approach to treat neuroinflammation, and maybe it can also give maybe an idea for an adjuvant therapy for gut inflammation treatment, for example.
That is so cool. I mean, it has so much potential. That's amazing. I also wanted to ask you, do you have any other cool facts or interesting studies that you have read that you want to share with the audience?
Actually, yes. There are, I think, two papers that really caught my attention in this gut-brain interaction field. And the first one, I think it was published 15 or 16 years ago. And the authors, they basically created germ-free mice. Germ-free mice means that the mice do not have a microbiota at all, or almost no microbiota at all. And I think this mice has been raised in a sterile, germ-free condition since birth, since they're babies. So they've never seen a single bacterium in their life. And later on in their life, the authors found out that these mice are more prone to develop anxiety, and they seem to be more stressful than the mice that were raised in normal condition. And I think it's very interesting because it's actually the first paper that drive the field forward, and what made people really question the relationship between your gut microbiota and your brain health and your mental state in general. So that's why I found it really interesting. And the second paper I found interesting is, I think it was published earlier this year, and the authors of this paper, they fed the mice with high energy density food to make them obese, I think. And the first sign that they found in this mice is that it changed in their gut microbiota composition, from the more good bacteria to bad bacteria to the other way around. And I think it's a very interesting because it's the very first response they found in the mice before fat accumulation in organs like liver, for example. And later on, these mice also, the authors also found out that some of the brain cells in these mice, the brain immune cells, they are also activated due to this high energy density and obesity that result from this diet. And I think it's a very interesting implication that further highlights the importance or the link between your diet, gut microbiota, and your brain health and immunity in general. So I think it's also a very interesting finding.
That is so cool. So to recap, so the bacteria in our guts, they influence our mental state, they can influence mental conditions such as depression and anxiety, and the diet that we have, or dietary changes, they influence the gut microbiome, and they can influence that, and they also influence the immune response, so the immunity that we have. This is all very fascinating, and I wanted to ask you, so I know you already explained properly, but maybe to be a bit more explicit for the audience that is not really into the topic, and maybe sometimes it's difficult to imagine all these things. What is the value, in your opinion, that there are scientists like you developing these topics, like working on this every day?
I think the importance is that to find an additional treatment aside from taking drugs, of course, that can benefit patients suffering from brain-related disorders like anxiety and or depression, by changing their diets, for example, or taking or probiotics containing more good bacteria. And by changing diets, I mean changing to a healthier one, a relatively healthier one that contains less bad fats and more polyunsaturated fatty acids and more fiber, for example. And of course, changing their dietary habit alone will not sufficient to solve their problems, their health problems. But to some extent, I would say it would help. Of course, I think more research are needed to substantiate this claim. But I think the main take-home message of this gut-brain interaction is that we should not, or clinicians should not treat problems in one organ as an isolated case, because all organs are connected. So maybe more systemic approach is required, as one problem in one organ can cause problem in the other organs, maybe in the long run.
Yes, I agree. And we are reaching the end of the interview. I'm really glad to have you here because this is such an amazing topic. I could interview you 4 times more. But before you go, I wanted to ask you if you have any extra words for potential students, maybe from your country, maybe that they are in the shoes you wear one day. What would you tell them about pursuing a career on these topics? Do you have any comments before you leave?
I think my advice would be to not be afraid to collaborate with other labs or other people, because there are a lot of challenging questions. They're very interesting to be asked in this topic, but it requires multiple expertise, because you not only have to have knowledge about the intestine but also the brain. So you have to know the physiological and the immune cells involved in the intestine, and then you have to design an experiment to determine if the mice is stressful and anxious, or they have like other health problems in the brain, for example, which requires a neuroscience knowledge. And on top of that, you have to probably sequence the bacterial species in the gut, which also requires bioinformatics knowledge. And I mean, you don't have to know all of those topics, of course, but remember that you can always collaborate with other labs that has the resources or the knowledge to address this problem. And on top of that, I think to not be discouraged by setbacks or by unexpected results, because it happens very often, especially when you deal with microbiota. And yeah, my message is to not be discouraged, not to dwell in your failure too long, and bounce back once as fast, and please bounce back as fast as you can from these setbacks, and maybe try to postulate new questions, or basically always move forward and don't dwell in your failure. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And thank you so much, Irina, again. It was a pleasure to have you here. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you enjoy it. If you enjoy it, I invite you to give thumbs up to the video, to leave a supporting comment, a suggestion for a topic for the next video. And you can also subscribe to the channel. That also helps the project to make it grow. And I hope you have a nice day and see you in the next video. Bye bye!